that the infection originated with a Dutch couple who traveled through southern Argentina and Chile. Dutch officials say about 40 passengers from the cruise ship hit by the hantavirus outbreak have disembarked to the island of St. Helena.
The MV Hondius was built to conquer the frozen ends of the earth, but today it is a floating fortress of fear. What began as a $20,000 luxury voyage has devolved into a high-stakes medical standoff off the coast of West Africa. 3 passengers are dead, a rare killer virus is stalking the cabins, and the world has slammed its doors shut. This isn't a vacation anymore, it's a survival trial on a ship that no country wants to touch. What happened during this luxury cruise ship lockdown is absolutely terrifying. The Dutch dominoes and the Frontline 38. Everything about this nightmare started from a simple cough. The timeline of this disaster is as precise as it is haunting, beginning long before the world took notice. It started on April 11, 2026, while the MV Hondius was navigating the lonely crystalline waters of the South Atlantic. A 70-year-old Dutch passenger suddenly collapsed with what appeared to be a severe flu. Within hours, he was dead. But the virus wasn't done with his family. His wife, who disembarked at the remote outpost of St. Helena on April 24th to accompany his remains, began showing symptoms herself. During a desperate flight to Johannesburg on April 25th, her condition plummeted. She died upon arrival at the hospital the next day. By the time a third passenger, a German national, succumbed on May 2nd while the ship was still at sea, the World Health Organization realized this wasn't a series of isolated heart attacks. They were witnessing a lethal cluster of a rare rodent-borne killer, hantavirus. This is hantavirus, specifically the Andes strain, a rare and lethal variant that is suspected of leaping from human to human in the tight, recycled air of a cruise ship. The mortality rate for this strain can hit a staggering 40%, while the 88 passengers are now locked behind their cabin doors in a state of high society purgatory. The true heart of this story is beating in the corridors and the galley. The MV Hondius relies on a dedicated crew of 61, and 38 of them are Filipinos. These sailors and service staff are the literal backbone of the vessel, now forced to act as a human bioshield for the wealthy travelers on board. They are the ones donning full personal protective equipment to deliver 3 meals a day to potentially infected cabins, knowing that every knock on a door is a gamble with an invisible enemy. The contingent isn't just maintaining the engines, they are the ones sanitizing every inch of the ship, managing the complex waste disposal protocols required for a biohazard, and providing the only human contact the terrified passengers have left. As of May 6, 2026, the Philippine Department of Health has confirmed a miraculous update. Despite being on the absolute front lines of this floating petri dish, none of the 38 Filipino crew members have shown symptoms. They are being monitored around the clock via international health regulations, working double shifts to keep the ship's vital systems running while the vessel remains a pariah, anchored and rejected off the coast of Cape Verde. They are the unsung heroes of this luxury voyage turned nightmare, keeping the lights on and the ship afloat while a prehistoric killer stalks the air vents. But how did a virus that usually requires a rodent's touch manage to leap across a luxury liner with no rats in sight? The ghost of the Andes. As the MV Hondius drifts in the Atlantic heat, the scientific community is grappling with a mystery that sounds like a plot from a bioterrorism thriller. Investigators are currently at a lethal crossroads, forced to choose between 2 potential causes. One is disgusting, but the other is fundamentally terrifying. The disgusting theory suggests a classic hantavirus spillover. It posits that a solitary, infected rodent, likely a long-tailed pygmy rice rat native to South America, clambered into the ship's dry food stores back in Argentina. Once nestled in the dark, cool recesses of the vessel's bowels, its viral-laden urine and droppings could have been pulverized by the ship's powerful industrial air conditioning system. This would effectively turn the luxury air vents into a delivery mechanism for microscopic death, blowing infected dust directly into the lungs of sleeping passengers. while a stomach-churning thought for anyone who paid for a high-end suite in the world of epidemiology, a rat in the vents is actually the better scenario because it implies the outbreak can be contained by simple sanitation. The alternative, however, is what is currently keeping the World Health Organization awake at night: the emergence of the Andes strain. While the vast majority of hantaviruses across the globe are dead-end infections, meaning they stop with the person who touched the rodent, the Andes variant, native to the very region in Argentina where the ship departed, is a biological anomaly. It is the only known strain of hantavirus on the planet capable of documented human-to-human transmission. If the Andes strain has hijacked the Hondius, the ship isn't just a transport vessel anymore. It's a high-speed incubator. This would explain why the virus appears to be moving through cabin mates and close contacts, such as the Dutch couple, like a ghost through walls. In this nightmare scenario, every cough in a shared cabin or every touch of a common handrail becomes a potential death sentence, bypassing the need for a rodent entirely. The stakes of this identification are astronomical because of the sheer lethality involved. Unlike the respiratory viruses we have grown accustomed to, hantavirus pulmonary syndrome carries a staggering mortality rate of nearly 50%. It begins with deceptive simplicity, a mild fever, a headache, or some stomach pain, but then with violent speed, it turns the body's own immune system into a weapon of self-destruction. The lungs fill with fluid as blood vessels leak, and the patient effectively drowns on dry land. For the 147 souls currently trapped on the vessel, the wait for laboratory confirmation is a countdown to see if their own breath has become their greatest enemy. With the invisible killer now identified as a potential human-to-human threat, the luxury liner has been transformed into a floating purgatory where every square inch of the cabin feels like a tightening trap. 147 souls in purgatory. As of May 6, 2026, the MV Hondius has become a floating psychological pressure cooker for the 88 passengers who paid between $16,000 and $25,000 for an expedition of a lifetime. The luxury aspect of the voyage has evaporated, replaced by the sterile, claustrophobic reality of a 200-square-foot cabin. Under the maximal physical distancing orders issued by the World Health Organization, the ship's once vibrant social spaces, the observation lounge, the library, and the lecture halls have been eerie, silent voids for days. The passengers, representing 23 different nationalities, are now living in a state of high-stakes isolation, where the only window to the outside world is a porthole looking out over the unreachable coast of Cape Verde. The expedition has transformed from an outward journey of discovery into an inward journey of survival, where every minor cough or slight spike in temperature is met with a paralyzing wave of terror. The human toll is perhaps best captured by the raw, emotional dispatches leaking out from the ship's Wi-Fi. US travel blogger Jake Rosmarin, normally known for polished adventure content, recently shared a tearful video that has since gone viral. "We are not just headlines, we're people," he pleaded with his followers, his voice cracking as he described the suffocating uncertainty of the lockdown. This sentiment is echoed by many on board who feel like they have been forgotten by the world, drifting in a diplomatic gray zone where no country is willing to take the risk of letting them touch dry land. While some, like passenger Qasem El Hato, try to maintain a sense of normalcy through reading and movies, the psychological strain of knowing that a deceased German national is being held in the ship's cold storage is an inescapable weight. It is a haunting reminder that while they are currently healthy, the virus's long incubation period means they are all essentially sitting on a biological time bomb. For the crew members, the purgatory is even more intense. While passengers have the luxury of retreating into their cabins, these sailors are the ones who must navigate the hot zones of the ship to maintain order. As the internal tension reaches a breaking point, the situation has shifted from a medical crisis to a geopolitical standoff as nations across the Atlantic begin to slam their ports shut. The international blockade. As the MV Hondius sits motionless off the coast of Praia, it has become the center of a tense geopolitical chess match. While the ship was originally scheduled to dock in Cape Verde for supplies and medical assessment, the local government has issued a firm and frigid no. Authorities in the capital, a city of fewer than 200,000 people, have invoked the precautionary principle, fearing that their local healthcare infrastructure, already stretched thin, could not survive a spillover of a 50% mortality virus. This rejection has turned the vessel into a pariah, a high-tech ghost ship drifting just miles from a civilization that refuses to touch it. For the 147 souls on board, the sight of the shoreline is no longer a symbol of hope. It is a reminder of their status as international outcasts. The standoff reached a fever pitch on May 6, 2026, when the World Health Organization and the Spanish government proposed a plan to move the ship to the Canary Islands for a full investigation. However, even this plan was immediately met with a fierce internal rebellion. Fernando Clavijo, the leader of the Canary Islands regional government, publicly rejected the proposal, stating that such decisions were being made behind the backs of local institutions without sufficient safety guarantees. This has created a harrowing diplomatic vacuum. While the Spanish Ministry of Health insists it will eventually receive the vessel in 3 or 4 days, the archipelago's local leaders are demanding a meeting with Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, effectively leaving the ship in a state of maritime limbo. Every hour of delay increases the psychological toll on the 17 Americans and 19 Brits on board, who are watching their windows of rescue slowly shutter. In the midst of this blockade, a desperate partial evacuation was finally authorized. On Wednesday, 3 patients, 1 British crew member, 1 Dutch citizen, and 1 German national were prepared for medical airlift. Because Cape Verde lacks the specialized biocontainment facilities required for the suspected Andes strain, these individuals are being flown directly to the Netherlands via specialized air ambulances. This move is a double-edged sword for those remaining on the ship. While it removes the most critical cases, it also reinforces the terrifying reality that they are carrying a pathogen so dangerous that it requires a cross-continental flight just for a safe hospital bed. Crew members now watch as these airlifts depart, knowing they must stay behind to navigate the ship through the death march to Spain, if Spain even allows them to drop anchor. With the ship's fate now resting on the whims of European politicians, the focus shifts to the final high-stakes gamble, the evacuation plan that could either save the survivors or spark a new global health crisis. The silent hitchhiker and the WHO alarm. As the sun beats down on the stationary MV Hondius, the air inside has become heavy with the weight of a dual investigation. While the passengers are sequestered, a team of international epidemiologists is working to solve a puzzle that could redefine modern virology. As of May 6, 2026, the World Health Organization has officially identified 7 medical cases linked to this single voyage, 2 laboratory confirmed and 5 suspected. Among these, the death toll remains at 3. The chilling detail that has put the global health community on high alert is the nature of these infections. Dr. Maria van Kerkhove, the WHO's Director of Epidemic and Pandemic Preparedness, recently stunned the press by announcing that they are investigating the very real possibility of human-to-human transmission on board. "We do believe there may be some transmission happening among the really close contacts," she noted, specifically pointing to the Dutch couple and those sharing cramped, high-end cabins. If this is confirmed as the Andes virus, it marks one of the most dangerous outbreaks in maritime history. This specific strain, which the WHO currently holds as their working assumption, is a biological outlier. Unlike other hantaviruses that require direct contact with rodent waste, the Andes strain can move from one person's breath to another's. This transforms the MV Hondius from a luxury vessel into a high-stakes laboratory. For staff, this news is particularly terrifying. They are the ones tasked with the deep cleaning and disinfection of the ship, operating under the assumption that every surface and every breath could be a vector for a virus with a 50% mortality rate. The investigation is also looking backward at the ship's itinerary for clues. Before reaching Cape Verde, the Hondius made several stops in ecologically diverse regions, including South Georgia and Ascension Island. Many passengers engaged in birdwatching and wildlife excursions, leading some experts to wonder if the patient zero actually contracted the virus during a land excursion rather than from a hitchhiking rat on the ship. However, the 8-week incubation period of hantavirus creates a massive window of uncertainty. It means that even those who feel perfectly healthy today could be carrying the virus, unaware that their bodies are already hosting a lethal guest. This invisible timer is what makes the current lockdown not just a medical necessity, but a psychological torture for everyone trapped within the steel walls of the Hondius. With the terrifying specter of human-to-human transmission looming over the decks, the mission has now shifted from containment to a desperate race for evacuation. The Great Evacuation and the Biohazard Airlift. On Wednesday, May 6, 2026, the static tension off the coast of Praia was finally broken by the rhythmic thrum of rotors. Under the intense scrutiny of the World Health Organization, a high-stakes partial evacuation was initiated to remove the most critical individuals from the MV Hondius. 2 specialized air ambulances, equipped with state-of-the-clock biocontainment pods, arrived to ferry 3 people directly to the Netherlands. This group included 2 crew members, one of whom is reportedly the ship's own British doctor and a passenger closely linked to the German national who died on May 2nd. This evacuation was not a simple humanitarian gesture. It was a tactical necessity. Because the islands of Cape Verde lack the Level 4 biocontainment facilities required to manage a pathogen of this lethality, these patients had to be transported thousands of miles to ensure they didn't spark a localized epidemic on the African mainland. The urgency of this move was underscored by a bombshell announcement from South Africa's National Institute for Communicable Diseases. Laboratory sequencing has officially confirmed that the culprit is indeed the Andes strain of hantavirus. This is the nightmare scenario virologists have feared since the first death on April 11th. The Andes strain is the only version of the virus on Earth with documented human-to-human transmission, usually occurring through close physical contact or shared living spaces. This confirmation transformed the remaining crew members from mere service workers into essential biomonitors. As the air ambulances disappeared into the horizon, these crew members remained on board, tasked with the monumental challenge of maintaining a clean environment while the ship prepares for a 3-day death march towards Spain's Canary Islands. While the most critical cases are gone, the psychological weight on those left behind has only intensified. The WHO has confirmed a new suspected case in Zurich, Switzerland, a passenger who had disembarked earlier and carried the virus across international borders before falling ill. This news has sent a shockwave through the 147 souls still on the vessel, reinforcing the reality that the virus has a deceptive 8-week incubation period. For the passengers and everyone in the ship, the evacuation was a reminder of how high the walls of their floating purgatory truly are. They are now sailing toward a Spain that is deeply divided over their arrival, with local Canary Island officials publicly rebelling against the national government's plan to let the ship dock. The Hondius is no longer just a ship. It is a mobile quarantine zone carrying a cargo of survivors who don't yet know if they are also carriers. As the Hondius weighs anchor for its final journey toward Europe, the world is left to wonder, is this the end of a tragic voyage or the beginning of a new kind of global biological threat? The warning to the world. The saga of the MV Hondius is more than a freak medical accident. It is a stark warning about the hidden costs of our desire to touch the untouched. As the ship finally edges towards specialized medical docks in Spain, it leaves behind a wake of questions that will haunt the cruise industry for decades. We have learned that even the most advanced ice-class vessels are vulnerable to the smallest, most prehistoric threats. The miracle of this tragedy remains the resilience of the 59 crew members who stood as a human shield between a lethal virus and a total humanitarian collapse. However, The confirmation of the Andes strain's human-to-human transmission on a commercial vessel changes everything. It proves that a bucket list vacation can, in a matter of weeks, become a global biological vector. As the remaining passengers finally step onto dry land to begin their grueling quarantine, the world must decide. Are we prepared for the invisible hitchhikers we bring back from the edge of the map? The Hondius may eventually be sanitized, but the memory of its lockdown will remain a chilling testament to the fragility of our modern, interconnected world. What do you think of this another virus outbreak? Leave your comments below and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't.